I think he's in Germany or something. So, and he talked about AI and innovation, which is the topic I teach at Stanford. So then I'll just give a talk about that. Okay, so let's see. I think everybody knows this word, right? I don't need to teach you about that, right? Okay. So I have a question. Who know in which year our human beings started to use this word? Any guess? 1950. Okay. 1980? Oh, come on.
20s.
More? Yes?
1920s.
1920.
Sorry, this is not related to this, but to the year, but it's very interesting. I was find out that when people talk about computer...
Anyway, give me a guess, okay? Give me a guess. Give me a guess. 1960s. Any other guess? Come on, be brave.
1905.
1905, okay, that's the earliest, 1905. Once, come on, twice. So here it goes. 1613, okay? That actually is even before the Mayflower ship arrived in North America. So guess what? Like around that time, this computer cannot mean a machine, right? It means a person does mathematical calculation. If you think about that, what it means, well, let's see. Oh, this thing didn't play out. Oh my God. All my slides crashed here. For some reason. Interesting. Okay, so that's the weirdest thing I've ever encountered, because there's supposed to be a picture here. Anyway, so there's supposed to be a picture with a full of women sitting together like this, and they're all doing calculation. That's actually a picture showing of a room in NASA in 1960s, okay? And then they call it computer room, or so basically in the past 400 something years that we have been using computer's word to refer to a human for 350 years. And it's only the past about 50 to 60 years that we change the meaning and we refer that to a machine. And when did that happen? It happens in 1960s, okay? So, let's, this thing crashed here. Anyway, okay, now without any picture, let's see how can I do this talk, right? So here's the thing. We are in a very similar time frame, because around that time, computer kicks in. And now, AI, robotics also kicks in. In the past few years, that the field of AI and robotics advanced really fast. And now let's see if I can play a video. If the video... Oh, let me see if I can somehow... I tried this before, the audio was working. Can anybody check the audio? You know what? Okay, this is a small audience. I can just choose this. Hope you can. So this is 2015. And those are the most advanced humanoid robot in the world around that time. It's June 2015. It is in a DARPA challenge to accomplish 8 tasks. Basically, these robots are supposed to drive a car, and then get out of the car, open the door, get through the door, and turn a valve, and then use a machine tool to cut a hole on the wall, and get onto some stairs. Basically, that was the test. I think there's 2 robots passed, and it took them like what, 2 hours and 40 minutes or so. So basically these are the most advanced humanoid robot in the world in 2015. And these are autonomous, which means that they have to make all the decisions by itself. And I was there on the spot watching this game. It was quite boring because these robots, when they get to the door, they would just stand there watching for an hour. And then move and wait for another 20 minutes and do something. Anyway, it's quite boring. That's in 2015. Oh my God. Okay, here, let's see if this picture. Oh, why this picture is still here, huh? So, have you ever seen the Atlas robot Backflip, right? Basically, this guy can do a backflip. Basically, 360-degree go, right? And that's 2.5 years later. So basically, we took like 2.5 years to go from this side to this side. This. Okay. I think I get some virus on this computer today. So anyway, so okay, now we talk about AI. AlphaGo without a picture. And actually, how many of you know the Go game? That's good. No, well, you heard of it. And it's interesting that when I talk this in East Asia, like everybody knows AlphaGo. But when I talk like at Stanford on campus, like when I teach the graduate level classes, and then to my surprise that actually about 60% never heard of it. Right? So then I have to play a video to explain what is Go game. Basically, it's the trailer for this documentary film of AlphaGo. And okay, let's see. Oh, wow. Anyway, I don't know what variance will affect this, but there's no picture. Basically, when people compare the complexity of Go versus the, they put universe as the comparison. The number of ways that you can play Go game will be bigger than the number of atoms in the whole universe. Okay? That's the sentence people always use. However, I'll say that's correct, but not accurate. Why? Let's see if I can see the numbers. Anyway, so this is the number of atoms in the whole universe, 10 to the power of 80. But think about this, the number of ways you can play Go game is 10 to the power of 768. Okay? Which means that this thing is way, way, way much bigger than this. Which means that if you turn every atom in the universe into a universe, and you count this again, and that will be 10 to the power of 160, right? And then you do this like for another 9 levels down, that reaches to that number, okay? So it's a huge number, and there's no way that our computer can calculate all the way down to every possibilities. And still, AlphaGo managed to conquer the human champion. That is a milestone, tremendous milestone. And now I have to see what I can do. Oh my goodness, okay. Yeah, you have something to show. Okay, here. Then this really gets to the question that, okay, is AI going to replace a lot of jobs, and how is that going to affect our life? I have a video here.
like 8,000, it will reduce half.
So this guy is, well, he created a company, the JD.com, which is the Chinese version of Amazon. And his vision is that he want to create a company without human, which, well, I don't really believe that. You need some people in there. But he actually mentioned a number, which is in 10 years, he's going to reduce the employee number from 160,000 to 80,000 in 10 years. So that's his goal, right? And then, interesting picture show up, huh? So AI lawyer. AI lawyer here, basically, well, Stanford, I think Stanford, USC, and Duke collaborated together to build like a AI lawyer to review these legal documents, and they had a competition with 20 professional human lawyers. And then the result is that the accuracy of a human is about 85%, and then the accuracy of the AI is about 95%. And then, but the shocking thing is that on average, it takes a human 90 minutes to do the job, and it on average takes the machine 26 seconds to do the job, to reach to 95% accuracy. So that's that. And then,
This is my very first day in Xinhua's agency. My voice and appearance are modeled on Zhang Zhao, a real actor with Xinhua. The development of the media industry calls for continuous innovation and deep integration with the international advanced technologies. I will work tirelessly to keep you informed as texts will be typed into my system uninterrupted. I look forward to bringing you the brand new news experiences.
so anyway, how many of you think that's a real person? So that's not a real person, that's a fake one. It's just, it's AI generated. So with the fake voice, and then this guy can keep talking for 24/7, as long as you input the text, and then he would just talk, right? And then, okay, so according to some study from Oxford University, 47% jobs in the US today will be replaced in the next 10, 20 years. And then the Department of Labor in US released a document that says that 65% of today's students will be employed in jobs that don't exist yet, which actually create a lot of problem for our education system that you don't really have a target to shoot for yet. So, then, well, I have a picture here, which didn't show up. It's the idea of singularity, which I don't really buy. I don't believe in singularity. It means that the machine intelligence will just go out of the roof, and it will catch human around like 2030 or something. But that's really it's not true at all. Then are we afraid of AI, right? Because of all these things. There's something, actually, okay. We have a lot of misunderstanding of AI in the public domain, especially in the media. And then that's, let me see if I can, oh my God. Let me see if I can open up some new, hopefully this one is not going to be affected, but I don't have that here. I won't take too much. Okay, anyway, sorry, I just couldn't find it, but I'll tell you. So there's an example happened in 2017. It's triggered by a Facebook engineer. He was doing some kind of training of two AI negotiating with each other on some deals, pretending, right? And then he put a post saying that if I let the parameters of these both agents updating itself, then it will lead these negotiations deviate from human language. Okay? It will just getting some nonsense result. So he decided to not do that, which means that he keep one agent parameter fixed and then update the other one. So he just have this kind of like as a report, whatever, put it on the web. And then there's one guy, what's his name? Is it Danny or something? So this guy captured that and he posted another sentence saying, oh, now the AI are able to create some non-human language. And he create a lot of buzz. And then after that, another, I think it's the Atlantic or something, it's a pretty important media says, wow, so the AI created its own language so that it scared this Facebook engineer and they pulled the plug. And then another media comes and then, okay, they say Terminator coming because now AI can have its own language, which we don't understand and things like that. So you see the things comes out, it started with a very regular post from an engineer about something which is kind of very objective, it's like a study result, but it then gets to a Terminator story. Part of the reason is that nowadays when people write about anything, they care what? They care about clicks, right? And they care about how many clicks they can get. And if they write Terminator or AI is not a Terminator, they don't get clicks. But if they write AI is a Terminator, then they get clicks. So guess what they choose? They choose to write AI is a Terminator, right? So that's pretty obvious. And then, let's see. Oh, okay, let's see if I can show this. Go on. Okay, so I jumped to the end. Human versus AI or robots. What is the main difference? And a lot of people say that's creativity and innovation. I'll say that's true. Then let's look at this question. Do robots and AI have creativity? And that's actually a pretty difficult question to answer. I hate this. I have 4 painting. And actually some of them are done by machine, and some of them are done by human. And actually for a normal person, it's hard to tell which one's which, basically. You're not able to tell which one is created by AI or which one is created by machine. It's hard to tell. And that's actually this ABCD, which actually, I think this file is already cropped. But anyway, so that's the thing. I show you, I ask you to vote which one is the AI, and then you show, okay, you're wrong. So that's supposed to happen. But anyway, you get it. So, and then it gets to the question, does AI have creativity? And then that really depends on how you define creativity. If it is create something new, then yes, because these programs can create a painting that look really good, and it looks like some human painted, but it is also very different from a human paint because AI doesn't really know what it paints. So you cannot ask an AI program, what did you paint? Like, what does that mean? It really depending on us, the viewer, to say, oh, that's a tree, and there's a bunch of rivers, and these actually the 4 I was planning to show was the Chinese the painting, the Chinese ink painting, which is kind of, I don't know how to describe that. The feeling is kind of like in a haze or something, Anyway, so in that sense, human creativity is very different from the machine creativity. However, the machine can totally reduce the barrier of become a painter. So basically, I'm like a trained scientist or engineer. I don't have the hand of a painter, so which means even if I have a very beautiful paint in my mind, I don't have the skill to draw it out. However, in the future, I was saying this sentence like 3 years ago that if you have a good enough AI which can help you, then you can draw a lot of things. You just need to communicate with the AI. The AI does the job for you, and And then I was planning to show you a bird, which is still back here. It's a bird here. It looks like a real picture. And then, but that's a fake bird. And it was created by a friend of mine who is leading a image lab in China. That basically you just need to input a bunch of words and this thing will just draw it for you. And it drew it very good. Basically, well, it's not really drawing. To me, that looks like a picture. So it gives you pictures. And you just type in, you know, I want a bird. Like I want a blue bird with white wings and things like that, and it just will come up. And that's the thing. Okay. So, here you go. The important message I want to deliver is the AI thinking, which have 3 points. Basically, we believe that AI is a fundamental change that is coming so that everyone, not just engineers, everyone need to have a general understanding of the basic of AI, and then the ability to differentiate yourself from AI so that you know where the boundary is and what need to be done by the machines and what need to be done by human. And then you have the ability to work with AI or robots so that you get help from them, because that's a very powerful tool, and don't be afraid of them because they cannot turn into a Terminator. But if we meet and you use AI and I don't, then I lose. So that's just that simple. Anyway, I guess, well, are we running out of time? So I guess that's, okay, so let's see if I can show this. Oh yeah, okay. So I have a previous slide that has a picture on it, which actually it's gone. But in the previous picture, that shows that we are in the knowledge explosion period of humankind, which means that basically before 1900, our knowledge or information doubles every 100 years. During 1950s, that speed changes to 25 years, and now it's every 1 year that our knowledge will double. What does that mean? It means that in 20 years, our knowledge will increase by 2 to the power of 20. That is actually a little bit bigger than 1,000,000 times. And then you might not believe, oh, that sounds like impossible, okay? It's very hard to predict the future, but it's easy to look back. 20 years ago, it's 1999, we're using this computer, right? Windows 98. And it has a slot there to, it's a portable drive, right? It's called floppy disk, right? And do you remember the, how big is that? 1.44 meg. Everybody remember that, right? So 1.44 meg, right? And now we could make something like this, right? A small SD card can hold 2 terabytes. That is already bigger than 1,000,000 times, right? And then you take a look at this. Guess what is this? What? Computer? Oh, your computer hard drive? He's right. It's a hard drive. Oh. It's 5 meg. It's 5 meg, right? And you compare with this, right? So, so we get to this situation that, well, there's supposed to be some pictures. We have knowledge explosion in front, and we have a bunch of robots with AI chasing us, right? It seems like we have nowhere to go. But actually, AI is our opportunity because, oh, great, okay, I'll show you this one. Basically, our brain, after this many years of evolution, we're not able to handle that much of information, but AI can handle that. We should use these machines to handle all these knowledge or information whatsoever to help us. And that is really the enabler. Okay, so this gets to the last page, which is have a bunch of bullet points. So robots and AI are not terminators. Okay, and then they will eliminate lots of jobs, but that's for sure. It will eliminate a lot of jobs. And then, but also create a lot of new opportunities. And then human and AI are both creative, but in different ways. Okay, they're not in the same way. They're different. They're not really competing with each other. So everyone needs to learn to use AI to be more creative and generate innovations. So when you do innovations, keep in mind that you better use AI somehow to help you. And then human-centered design is what we teach, right? Human-centered design is one of the most important ways to teach human creativity. I put this, human creativity, okay? We're not teaching machine creativity, we teach human creativity. And human creativity is the thing that AI cannot do. No way, okay? So that's it, thank you. I think we should swap a computer because this computer is already affected, I think.
Okay. So while we do this, maybe, do you have some questions?
If you have any questions, I'm happy.
Any questions? Yeah, David?
There's a lot of discussion about the boundaries between what AI should be doing, what humans should be doing. Is there any, any otherwise worried about the work, the jobs that's going to be lost? It's not, it's the amount of the work. Yes, there are some jobs will be created.
Well, I think this boundary is not really up to us to define. Okay? The machines will do whatever they're good at. And then this boundary is upon us to find where it is. It's not like human can define, okay, this is my territory, don't come to this side, because it's not going to work like that.
Do you think the society at the law level or at the society level could make some decisions about that boundary, or we are just like let the free run and figure out as it goes?
I think we could do something, especially on things that will affect the ethical part and a lot of these related stuff, but but I think the majority part we will just let it do whatever it can do, and then you cannot really compete with the machines, right? Think about this: you're not going to train your children to run faster than a car, right? Because you're not going to just doesn't make sense, and also it doesn't make sense for you to train a student to calculate faster than a machine, and then a computer. There's no way you can do that, right? So, anyway.
One question. The way you describe AI is basically helping us intelligently to work with a lot of data and information, right?
Yeah.
So basically, it's a two-level computer for mathematical equations. Is AI also has the potential to also create like on personality or something? So we saw the man for the news. He's just reading news to us. So also artificial.
We could fake it. So nobody in this world knows how to create real self-consciousness yet. And I actually believe probably in maybe 100 years we still don't know how to do it. But we could make a robot that make you feel that he has feeling. So fake it.
But is it more like we tell him society rules, like the app we saw? I don't know if something might remember. That he has rules and guidelines that he should behave in.
Yeah. So basically,
But it's not that he has own emotions.
that's right. It's completely different than our feelings that you inside you have the feeling. But then the computer have no feeling inside, but he just, based on the human rules, that he is like, okay, now I'm supposed to be sad and give you a sad face, and you think this guy have a feeling, but no.
So it doesn't create personality. It's not really about data and analytics.
At this moment, yeah, based on all the deep learning structures, yes, that's the thing. Deep learning or some kind of reinforcement learning only can do this type of job. Very good, yeah, okay.
It was really inspirational. Great job, thank you. So let's come to the next speaker of today. It's a lovely friend who I met at Stanford for a very long time, and Santhi Analytics was not only part of the teaching team and ME 310 class at Stanford University, but she also got her PhD degree in mechanical engineering. And I remember very well when she showed me a kind of needle that is able to self-sense its bending. And it was a super complicated talk from her. I mean, I never studied engineering, but it stick forever in my mind, and therefore I'm really glad that you're here and share your founding practices and entrepreneurial practices with us today, and yeah, we and you, we put the focus on the founding team itself. So thank you for being here, and I'm really looking forward to listen to you.
Thank you for having me. As Falk mentioned, I'm here to talk to you about picking founders, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself to start. I did my undergrad in biomedical engineering at the University of Minnesota, and through undergrad I did research in growing tissue engineered heart valves, and I did a lot of computational work modeling biological systems both at the U of M and in Karlsruhe, Germany. I also started a chapter in Minnesota of Engineering World Health. We gathered medical equipment and hospital equipment to refurbish them to donate to underserved regions all over the world, and through that I worked in Latin America as a clinical engineer for some time. And at Stanford, my PhD was in mechanical engineering. My work was in part funded by Intuitive Surgical, the makers of the Da Vinci robot, and iPhos, which is a startup working on fiber optic technologies. And this is just a snapshot of my PhD. I'm going to kind of fly through it, but I built a lot of devices to enable interventions inside the MRI scanner, especially biopsies and prostate interventions. So that needle up there is what Falk was talking about. It had fiber optic sensors that could sense in 3D its own shape, and also had sensors at the tip to relay forces. So as a needle goes through different types of tissue in the body, and if you get a tumor versus which kinds of cells, you can feel the difference and see the difference as well. So the 3D shape I used to move the scanning plane of the MRI and overlay the actual shape of the tool. And then I had this interesting manipulator to steer the tools from outside the scanner door because there's not a lot of room. So those were the many devices I made during my PhD. And I was actually thinking about starting a company, like most people at Stanford. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. I originally started to think about starting a company around the force sensing needle in epidural space and doing spinal taps and things, because it's a very distinct force profile as a needle goes through the different layers. But actually, I didn't do that at all right after graduating, and a lot of it had to do with my team, and I'll talk about that later. Quick other bit of background: most of my industry experience in general has been an R&D engineer in med devices and in consumer products. Through the Stanford program, I work with Kodak, and Moxley is my company. We are both a consumer device and a medical product. So stepping back a little bit, I think I might be missing a slide, but we'll see if my team pops up again here.
It must be the room.
It's okay. I want you to see my lovely co-founders, but I think they'll show up again. We'll see. We'll find them. But Moxley, this is our product that's launched right now. They're accessories for breast pump. And if anyone here knows about breast pumping, if you have kids or have close friends with kids, the accessories that are out there right now, you can see a shadow of one right here, are quite bulky. This is what goes on the breast, collects breast milk, and they stick out. Our product is lower profile. That's the flow right there. It has a flexible neck to conform to different bodies, and it can be worn underneath the clothes. And you don't have to put on a special bra to be hands-free like you currently have to do. And the moms love the product. She's wearing it on both sides, but you can see it's very discreet. You would be able to see it in your clothes. These are real reviews from our website. And now I'm getting into the team. So here are my co-founders and I came together because of a shared passion for designing better products for women. Kara's an MBA. I came from the engineering side, and then Gabrielle's a product designer. Together, we built a team, and we got a product FDA cleared. Then we got acquired, actually. Our parent company is a privately owned Swiss company. And then we also shipped a product. This is the day, the happy hour after the day we first started selling. And apparently you wear crazy wigs when you launch your product. And even bring your baby to work. And so there's a lot of people that help make this happen. We're talking about teams. Part of your extended teams are the first people that give you money. So we have our investors. A lot of investors end up being advisors as well. But in addition to that, we had a lot of contractors and consultants that all are part of this, and even our first users. A lot of people help make it happen. So I'll talk a bit of who is part of the founding teams. These are kind of the main players we'll mostly be talking about. And for founders and first employees, there's certain things that we should be looking for. I'm not sure what happened. Okay. That's strange. Didn't just happen. All right. Let's work. Okay, got it. So hopefully everyone can see this. Things you're looking for your founding team. And maybe it's obvious, but you definitely want someone who has other skills than what you have to bring to the table. I mentioned one of my co-founders was an MBA. I didn't know anything about corporate structure or financing. The other had a strong background in ethnography and user research, and then I could bring in the med device and technical background to the table. And it really helped us kind of keep our own areas of expertise without too much overlap as well, because I think that can be a problem when you have a founding team of all software engineers and everyone has the final say in the same thing. And then another thing, people different from yourself, and even though I know it happens all the time, I personally wouldn't be as interested in investing in a team that where everyone has the exact same background. And just a quick note about diverse teams. This isn't meant to be a political statement of any kind. I think sometimes, especially in this country, if you mention diversity or race and gender, it gets a little political. It's not at all political, and actually I think it's something that a lot of designers, most people who study design research already know, that a diversity of ideas leads to greater shared knowledge and better innovation in general. And that's why we encourage in brainstorming the quantity of ideas over quality, and because that's where interesting things happen, and no judgment and things like that. So building on that, there's a couple good research that has come out. This Credit Suisse research, this is the high-level finding that having just one or more women on the team led to higher financial returns, and this was based on looking at over 2,400 companies with and without women on the board. And they had all sorts of theories of why this could be true. Some being that women in general focus more on mentoring and coaching, and so the leadership team as a whole gets better, and the fact that they're reaching a bigger talent pool because the majority of college graduates are women. And then we all have known for a long time that over 80% of household purchasing decisions are made by women in the house. So having leaders at the top more attuned to the needs is definitely helpful. And another study by McKinsey, and this one was based on about 1,000 1,000 different companies over 12 countries. They found that racially and ethnically diverse and gender diverse teams led to higher financial returns, looking at the ones in the top quartile there. And then the other interesting thing is actually from the bottom quartile for diversity, they were doing less than average. So it's not just that they weren't leading, they were actually kind of lagging, which is quite interesting. And then the final note on this, the Harvard Business Review, because you think about like, why is this, why can diversity and conflict and maybe even being a bit uncomfortable with people around you happen to be a good thing. And this review article by Harvard Business School showed, they did a bunch of social experiments, this kind of review of different experiments, and some being like pretending to be on a jury and find out who committed a crime, or doing like pricing stocks, different types of like activities, and the more diverse teams asked more questions and just like didn't assume things as much, and there's like all sorts of kind of unconscious like bias that can happen. You can form when you're too comfortable, which is interesting. And that kind of leads to that other final point, which was gathered also from over like 7,000 companies in the UK about diversity of ideas. So that's that point. So where are you going to find these like first people to work with? Of course, like academic environments are great, and a lot of people find people they want to work with based on who they've already worked with. I'll talk a bit about meetups and lectures and things like that, and I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the hackathon and how those work. And there's hacker spaces, especially here in Silicon Valley, where people just get together and make things. And your network can also include investors, because investors know other companies and people looking for things in between things. They're kind of like the best people to find other smart people who are interested in starting stuff. And here are some of the obvious virtual places, LinkedIn and AngelList. And GitHub, I guess I don't know how software heavy this group is, but I just assume that everyone kind of knows what GitHub is about, especially if you're looking for software engineers. Hackster.io is kind of like a GitHub but for hardware, so people who do embedded systems or mechatronics, you can find some really interesting projects. And of course, there's all sorts of webinars and online courses to get together like-minded people, or even in that exploratory stage. And it's always okay to like cold message people on LinkedIn and AngelList as well, if you're just interested in their background. That works too. This is just an example of a Hackster.io page. I know it's probably hard for you to see, but I searched like solar generator, just like curious to see what people have done, some DIY projects, and like people put up just like GitHub source code, firmware code, and even videos and photos of what they're doing. So there's like interesting users to find people. And then there's all sorts of places where people gather, and this is definitely not very exhaustive at all of the list, but it's kind of the communities I'm more in tune with around hardware. Here at UCSF, the Rosenman Institute has a lot of great events around med tech. So they have regulatory people come in, and IP, and lots of entrepreneurs giving great talks. And VLab is also based out here. A group of alums from MIT and Stanford that put on events and panels. Always there's a theme of like specific deep tech innovation. So there's all sorts of like groups that do lectures and series. Of course, here is a great place to network. And if you hadn't like been on Meetup yet, you can basically find everything, a group for everything. This is just some stuff that's happening around right now in San Francisco, from hiking to hacker events. And another thing to remember is a lot of big companies, for example, Google has lecture series that are open to the public, and so there's some places to find others. And about hackathons, most people hear of software hackathons, but there are actually hardware hackathons as well. And it's how I met my co-founder, found out what she was working on with a hackathon during SF Maker Weekend, and it was hosted here by a engineering firm 4 years ago. And since we started, there actually have been 2 hackathons just around breast pumping. So you've been quite specific. Yeah. And they were like arranged by professors from MIT Media Lab, and Moxley went as we were judges for those events and sponsors. But yeah, so you can find a group doing everything. Just look. And then about angels and investors and advisors, I kind of grouped them together because they're pretty similar. And of course, I mean, the #1 goal of any business is going to be to make money and be profitable, but you kind of want to also have advisors that have like a shared passion into what you're doing and want to expand the field, not just put money in you because I think it's going to make money. But that you want them to believe in your abilities, and this is especially true if your investor would be on your board. You want them to believe in the founding team so they can support you. And then as a founder, your job is to be coachable and be able to take advice. And also to talk to former entrepreneurs. This is both for when you're looking for advisors. Again, there's like accelerators and incubators and things where you'll, that their sole purpose is to find those investors. We'll talk a little bit about that. But you can talk with entrepreneurs, especially if you are in the stage of considering a specific investor. I've heard all sorts of stories from entrepreneurs about kind of regret taking some money from certain groups as well, either because it wasn't the right stage for them or the right cultural fit. And you can be selective as well. So that's a bit about who we're looking for. Where you find them, all sorts of pitch programs here. And then another thing that's interesting, a lot of these community groups have office hours. And I think, yeah, here's a couple that, again, that I'm just more in tune to because they're more in my space of hardware and med devices. But the specific groups that already have a network and are open to talking with entrepreneurs and people to bounce ideas off of. So find these groups and good office hours. Here's just a very, very brief collection of accelerators. Hacks is one, it's probably the most premier like hardware-specific accelerator. It's a few months spent in Shenzhen making the product itself and like figuring out how to get it made, doing the tech development, and then a few months in San Francisco with the pitching and business development. StartX is a community of Stanford-affiliated, loosely affiliated founders in the community, but it's a great space to get advice from anything from payroll to what IP lawyers to use to all sorts of deals on software and things that help the business. And they also do investing. And Launchpad and JLabs are from bigger companies, Google and Johnson & Johnson, and they have their own like sort of fellowship programs, but also a lot of different events go on Meet the World. And then Start Out is one based here in San Francisco that's specifically focused on if a company has at least one LGBT founder. And then I was just going to end with some quotes that I've heard from friends just around this topic of founding and networking. So you can take the first one with a bit of a grain of salt, but a friend saying, well, who's going to do this again? He had a hardware company was recently bought by Amazon, so it did quite well, but he's like, for the next time, I might look at acquaintances or someone a little bit out of the circle, which is interesting. But I also know people who started companies with their siblings and are totally fine with it. So I think it's personal preference. About growing your network, treat it like a garden. Nurture it, put as much in as you're going to take out, really. And And the analogy is like, it's not a farmer's market. You can't just show up and take or buy your way in. And one thing that's important when you're looking for things is to talk as much as possible about your vision. And it's not gonna, not everyone's gonna get it, and that's okay. It's not their thing. But putting yourself out there is really helpful. And related to talking about your vision all the time, even talking about your technology,